Let's see now. Wood carving. The process of cutting into the surface of wood to create a decorative shape or pattern. And this is probably one of the easiest ways to do it. But before we do all that, I'm going to try out this new transfer paper I got. I usually use carbon paper, which transfers great, but it's really hard to erase. Then someone recommended graphite paper to me, which some people online will list as carbon paper and vice versa. So you have to make sure you get in the right one. Usually it will say easily erasable or something like that on the packaging. This is what we're going to be using, a standard V-chisel. This one is made by File. Now in my finite wisdom I thought this is a carving video for beginners. So let's use a wood that's easy to source. So I got an old piece of construction grade pine and I went at it. Problem is that even though it's possible to carve into this, it doesn't really show you this tutorial as being easy. The fact that it doesn't have tight grain and it's quite splintery really doesn't help, so this is why you want to try, if you can, to find some wood that's easier to carve. So you might want to source something like linden wood or basswood, which is basically the same as linden, gelatong or tulip poplar. There's others of course, but I feel like these four are probably the easiest to find. So I got fed up struggling with that pine and decided to grab one of my little pieces of linden wood. I buy these from a timber merchant called G&S Specialist Timber in Scotland. If you're in the UK, I consider them to have fairly good prices and, you know, it's pretty decent wood. So now with the linden wood wedged into my little stand, you can see just how easily the chisel glides through it. We're not snagging up on protruding grain or anything like we were with the pine, and the lines generally look much smoother. The great thing about linden wood or basswood is that it has really tight grain. And what do we mean by that? Because that's said quite a lot, you know. Well, basically the rings of the tree are closer together. It's a more slowly growing tree than what your average pine tree would be. This means we have fewer big voids of material between the rings, making the carving easier and the wood much more dense. It's kind of like a natural soft sponge that has loads of holes in it compared with a dense piece of foam. A similar-ish material, but more tightly packed. I started with the back because it's probably one of the simpler ones to carve and gives you an idea of just how easy this can be. That doesn't mean that you don't need to practice to get accurate control of the V-chisel, because you do, but we'll talk about ways to do that in a little bit. And it was really satisfying at the end to see how all of the transfer marks came off using my rubber. I was really happy with that. So if you haven't realised the theme of these templates yet, apart from that they're easy to carve, they're all British animals, as I am a British person. But on the template we have a bat, a frog, a fox, a butterfly, a beetle, Highland cow, rabbit, heron, squirrel and mouse. And you can download this template for free on my Patreon as a PDF file. I didn't think it was really important to show every single carving I did, as they all essentially require the same technique and movements. I did, however, think it might be valuable to show you a couple of different ways to hold your chisel for better control. So when carving from the right hand side, this is how I prefer to hold it. It's important when using a chisel without a mallet that you hold it with two hands and have the hand closest to the blade touching the wood or a solid object that's nearby if possible, such as a workbench. This gives you added stability and accuracy. Carving from the bottom upwards is just a different variation of the same hold, essentially. Now carving from the left hand side, if you're right handed, will feel weird, but it will make you more versatile and faster at carving. This is how I normally like to hold the chisel when I'm carving from the left side. Now this last bit is going to absolutely kill my audience retention for this video, but I wanted to record carving one of these designs in its entirety with no cuts, so you can see that it'll only take you a few minutes to do it. And while I'm carving this, I just want to say thanks very much to my supporters, and especially to Dave this week, who has joined up on Patreon at the Bendy Boy Society there. Thanks Dave, and thank you all for your support, paying or otherwise. I really appreciate it. I have a really interesting project coming up soon that I've been working on for some time. And all I'll say is that at the moment it's kind of furniture related. Paying supporters on Patreon and YouTube have already had a deeper look at what I'm going to be doing with that. This V-chisel I actually got from my dad. He used to do a bit of woodwork back in the day, and the very few spare moments that he had when he wasn't working. And he actually did a little bit of wood turning, and I have a bunch of his old wood turning chisels that he doesn't want to use anymore. He's much more into his gardening these days. And even though I had all these influences from my dad and my brothers and my granddad who all liked to make stuff, I actually didn't get into woodworking until I was about 27. And funnily enough, it was our elderly neighbour who was the catalyst for it. We have a really good relationship with her, and she wanted a gap made in the hedge and an arch built between our homes so we could get to each other's properties more easily. My dad and brothers were busy on the weekend that we sort of allocated to do it, and I was the only one around, so even though I really didn't want to do it, I had to. I had made things before with other people, but for some reason, doing it on my own, being left to my own devices and having free reign on the design choices, just brought out this intense interest in woodworking for me. And soon after I started searching for people making things online with hand tools, as you know, I couldn't afford any power tools, and I came across Roy Underhill, who's a traditional woodworker from the US. He has a TV show called The Woodwright Shop, or he did, I'm not sure if he does it anymore. This just got me addicted to all the old methods and all the fascinating ways that old workers solve problems, and it amazed me that such grand things could be achieved with just human power alone and ingenuity. And if you haven't watched Roy Underhill, I suggest you try it. He's truly a pioneer in my eyes, and I've learned so much from him, just being an excellent presenter and a generally funny and engaging guy to watch. We don't really get him on TV in the UK, so I had to buy his DVDs, but I have about 10 of them, I think. But you should definitely be able to find some of his stuff on YouTube and I think on the PBS website. So after watching Roy, I bought a hand plane and a few other small tools and grabbed whatever wood I could find and started making stuff. The thing is, not only was I clueless about decent wood back then, but I didn't have enough money to buy it. So I started with pallet wood, unfortunately, pulling all the nails out and then trying to plane it down as I saw Roy doing on the TV. And you may not believe me when I say it, but when I first started, I never bothered to learn how to sharpen my plane blade properly or how to adjust it, because I thought that was just, you know, something that fancy woodworkers did, and I was just some guy, and that attitude and using the poor quality wood almost made me quit because I wasn't getting those satisfying curls and the plane was constantly digging into the wood. And eventually I decided to try sharpening, and you know, well, that changed it all really. And now I've slowly evolved towards wood carving. Problem solving is still one of my favourite things to do. It's incredibly satisfying to see a problem and then come up with a solution, like the little fold up carving bench I made, or my method for gluing wood chips back together, and a bunch of other stuff. I know I'm kind of blabbing, but I guess my point is that you never really know when some kind of action will cause you to uncover a passion, no matter how small that initial action might be. Now don't forget, this template is free for everyone. All you got to do is join my Patreon as a free member, and you download it as a PDF or a PNG if you like. Generally I prefer PDFs because they seem to keep it a constant size no matter where you print them. I don't think you're going to win any awards at a show for this carving, but it's just something that's very relaxing to do if you have minimal time, or if it's your first project. It can teach you a lot about chisel control. Design wise, these might look great on a chopping board or a piece of furniture or a box, or maybe as a decoration for a kid's room or something, who knows. Anyway, thanks very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.